do I pray without a reason when all I do is treason? But you never left me. You never left me. You loved me even without receiving a fine or a fee. Hung on the cross, I am saved through your saving grace. Like Zacchaeus on the tree, the worst sinner, judged by the people, he faced disgrace. But you dined with him, gave him a new name and changed his case. Oh, by your mercy, you cleaned me up from being messy, constantly reminded me of who I am, even though I was dirty.
God is showing off how gracious he is, and that we don't have a merited reason to be in the family, but we have been adopted into the family. He's showing off how his grace is so inclusive and not exclusive, that he is lavishly and lasciviously extending it out to people who had no right. And now
they're much bigger than ourselves. Whew. I know what it's like to ask God, who me? I ain't lying. I know what it's like when God calls. And you like, Lord, who me? You ever did that? Like Jeremiah, Lord, who me? I'm too young. Like Moses, Lord, who me? I got a speech impediment. Some of you right now, like, Lord, don't you know what I used to be? Some of you, Lord, I got a record. Lord, I'm caught up in something. I got issues. I got hang-ups. But let me tell you something, people of God, so you will not live in shame and guilt about how God can use you, because the only people God ever used were those who had a past. Noah was a drunk. Abraham was too old. Isaac was a daydreamer. Jacob was a liar. Leah was ugly. Joseph was abused. Moses had a stuttering problem. Gideon was afraid. Samson was a womanizer. Rahab was a prostitute. Jeremiah was too young. David was an adulterer and a murderer. Elijah was suicidal. Isaiah preached naked. Jonah ran from God. Naomi was a widow. Job went bankrupt. John the Baptist ate bugs. Andrew lived in the shadow of his big brother. Peter denied Christ. All the disciples fell asleep when Jesus said, pray. Martha worried too much. The Samaritan woman was divorced not one time, but several times. Mary Magdalene was demon-possessed. Zacchaeus was too small. Timothy had an ulcer. Paul was a Christian killer. And guess what? Lazarus was dead. Now, what's your excuse? Because it doesn't matter what is wrong with you. If you turn your life over to him, by the grace of God, God can use you in spite of you.
Shape. And aren't you glad that the grace of God, the redemption of God, the goodness of God, the forgiveness of God, the mercy of God is not just for some people in a particular place, but that it pushes past all barriers and past boundaries, and it reaches people like us who have strikes against us, who have a history, who have a past, who may be marginalized or ostracized, the disenfranchised, the down and out. His grace and his goodness even reaches us.
Grace, grace, grace,
grace,
grace be unto you. Grace is more than unmerited favor. Grace is the stabilizing force that God gives you to withstand the winds of opposition. Grace is what God gives you when you think you can't take anymore. Grace is what God gives you when the enemy has plotted to destroy you. Grace is what God gives you when all hell breaks loose in your life. Grace is what God gives you when you're running out of strength and out of will and out of might. God gives grace to the humble. He strengthens you. He fortifies you. My God, I'm wondering if there's anybody that's walking in grace, standing in grace, preaching in grace, living in grace, driving in grace, 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 grace.